No, baby, it's too hard for you.
Please.
No.
Dad, I'll drink a zombie potion.
No, there's no such thing as zombie potions, and you're way too little.
Fine then. Be quiet.
Most gamers have a different story as to what their favorite video game console is and why. Mine started when I was 11. I bought a PlayStation 1 with some money that I had saved up alongside with some money that my grandmother had put aside for me when I was born and drawn interest on up until that point. The 3 games that I got with it were Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot, and Resident Evil. A lot of my childhood has been spent playing video games with the PlayStation 1 controller in my hand, and I think it's safe to say that no matter what side of the video game console war you're on, when you think of retro gaming and your favorite video games, the first thing that comes to mind is that controller in which you played those video games on. Today on Blackheart Family Gaming, we're going to explore playing one of my favorite retro series, being the tank control era of Resident Evil, on some of the ports that were not PlayStation 1.
Me and Daddy, we'll learn to play video games. Dad said I'm drinking zombie potion. I have one right here. Whoa.
Oh crap, a zombie! Thank God that wasn't on a PS1 controller.
playing Resident Evil, or in this case, Biohazard, on the Sega Saturn, in and of itself seems pretty crazy to me. I didn't even know that the game was ported for the Saturn until well after I had moved on from playing PS1 games. So today I busted out the 3D controller that came out with the Nights into Dreams pack intended for 3D games. They didn't really get very many games with this controller in mind, so it's kind of fun to pull it out and use it for stuff when we're playing two-player games. The trigger is pretty awesome because when you pull it down, it actually feels like you're pulling a trigger instead of pressing a button. So when it's time to shoot zombies, it's pretty awesome pulling a trigger and then smashing the button to shoot the bullets. It is kind of weird going from the run button to the action button. I'm used to just holding my thumb down on one and then tapping it, the other button with the other side of my thumb, but on the Saturn I have to shift back and forth. It's pretty cool holding the rounded shaped controller in your hands, whereas you're used to the grip of the PlayStation 1. It feels pretty good handling the tank controls just like any D-pad of that era. It's kind of, I kind of wish that the 3D controller part worked of it. You can only use the D-pad. Kind of sucks that I don't know how to read Japanese. I'd like to be able to see if any of the Now it's time for one of the more awkward choices for tank control Resident Evil, the Nintendo 64. The only thing that I think is actually really awkward about this controller is just the way that it feels in your hand. I ended up using the D-pad when I played through the game. It just felt more comfortable. And the button layout doesn't really work well for Resident Evil, or actually any other video game for that matter, because the Nintendo 64 controller is just absurd. I often caught myself fumbling between the menus as I was playing through the game. I never just got quite comfortable, even though I had done 2 or 3 campaign runs recently. The joystick feels okay running around. They mapped it to an auto run when you use the joystick. I don't really like navigating with that method. I'm more of a D-pad guy when it comes to tank control Resident Evil. And with how badly the Nintendo 64 controllers age, you may or may not be able to get a very responsive experience playing Resident Evil with the Nintendo 64. There are some third-party, recently developed Nintendo 64 controllers that everyone rants and raves about. I haven't tried any. If you have, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. The green one that you see on screen actually works quite well for its age, and I've ran through a couple of games recently with it, and it's still holding up pretty fine. I try to be nice with it, though. The kids get to use my one that's in worse condition. Playing Resident Evil 3 on the Dreamcast has probably been my favorite experience out of this little experiment that I came up with. It handles great, the controller's awesome, and I absolutely love the screen output on the VMU. It shows your status when you're running around playing, when you're in between loading screens or checking something. It either shows Resident Evil or shows Jill's face on it, which I think is a nice touch. The control stick works well, also the D-pad. The buttons are laid out like I'm used to feeling on a PlayStation, and it also has that trigger feel that the Saturn has. One thing that I did notice while playing this port was that the dodge mechanic happened to work better. I learned a long time ago from a speedrunner that you need to be pulling the weapon up as you're getting bit, and then she'll dodge it, instead of having the gun fully drawn and then hoping that it works. In the video that I saw, he was constantly lifting the gun up and down and liked to use the rocket launcher because it had the longest draw. I'm not nearly on that level. I just like to run around blasting everything on this one because it gives you way too many bullets and it's fun trying to kill Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 on Dreamcast has definitely got to be one of the more fun ports you can play. The prices do happen to be getting up there lately, so good luck getting you a cheap one. And now time for everybody's favorite meme controller to pull out. The Resident Evil chainsaw. You can pull the draw cord to start the controller and press start at the same time, which I think is pretty awesome. But otherwise, you might as well be playing Resident Evil with some boxing gloves on. This thing feels and handles like crap. I kind of have big, huge bass player hands, and I feel like I'm going to break this thing just playing in the beginning of the game. I happen to be tasking Code Veronica, and I'd hate to try to get to the tyrant boss on the airplane with this controller. I don't see that happening. If you want to see a big montage of yourself getting eaten by zombies over and over and over again, track one of these down. Pretty cool for a nice shelf piece, but I would not recommend actually using it. I disabled the feature to where if you lean the chainsaw back, it will rev and pull up R1 so you can yank the chainsaw like you're going to use it and then shoot people at the same time. I thought that was actually kind of silly of an idea. If you're a diehard Resident Evil fan, this is a nice piece to add to the collection, but functionally, well, I'd rather a buffalo take a diarrhea dump in my ear.